Hey guys, it's Bridget with San Diego Seed Company, and I want to show you something that is just me being real. We're all humans and we're all trying to human, as somebody once very eloquently said. And sometimes we make mistakes, sometimes things happen, and in gardening, man, that can happen even more because there's so many factors that are out of our control, and our lives are moving so quickly and weather patterns are changing, and it just, things happen. So I'm gonna be vulnerable with you and hope that you guys can learn from some of our mistakes. I want to talk about garden timing. When do you start crops, and the thought process you need to go through when you're thinking about starting your crops for any season, and the implications of when you start them. We made a couple of boo-boos this year, and that's okay. Hoping that you guys are going to learn from them in this video. Do I still do the now before I get into it, like a subscribe?
Yeah, we'll do that in just a second.
Okay. Okay, so we're in my greenhouse. It is the end of March. And you can see I have a lot of plants that need to go into the ground like yesterday. What happened was, I'll give you a little bit of a background on this. We have been starting tomatoes for our farm in Ramona for many years now, and typically it would take us somewhere between like 6 to 8 weeks to really get our tomatoes up to a good size to plant out. Well, we've gotten really good at it because this is the third year we've done it on a commercial scale. And now it's only taking us about 5 weeks. So that was factor number one. We're already 3 weeks ahead of schedule because, well, we've just gotten really good at starting tomato seeds and giving it exactly what these plants need to get nice and big and beautiful. Then the other thing that happened was, well, we got a little excited, which happens every year, and we started about a week early. So we're about 3 weeks and then an extra week. 4 weeks, almost a month earlier than we originally planned, we have these tomatoes that need to go into the ground. Number one, if you just look at these tomatoes, they are way too big. They are lanky and long. I mean, look at this. They should not be this big. One of the ways in which you know your tomato plants are too big is if they, or too lanky rather, is if they can't stand up on their own. This is really showing you that these guys are way too long. And now my choices are either I could pot these up and then wait until I can plant them outside, or I can try to keep them alive in these and we can try to plant earlier outdoors. Well, in Ramona, where our farm is, there is a small chance of getting a late season frost. Very light, and it's a very small chance, but still that means that if we plant these out, we're taking a chance that they could be damaged by cold temperatures. Now luckily that cold temperature is so little that we can just use row cover and that will take care of it, but it's a lot of extra work to put hoops up and cover all 500 of our tomato plants. So that's issue number one, is that these are really too big for this pot size and they need to go outside, but we're worried about the weather patterns. The other issue we have is that having this many tomatoes in the greenhouse this close together is really a bad idea. And that's because there's no airflow in between these plants. Even if I turn on my little box fan, which at least helps move the plants, there is still stagnant pockets of air in between these tomatoes, which is really conducive to insect growth and disease growth. Obviously this is a greenhouse, so it's hot, it's moist, and inside these little pockets of these tomatoes, very easily we can start an outbreak of powdery mildew or downy mildew. Aphids can become an issue. It's just a lot of things can happen in this small of a space. If you have a greenhouse and it's full of plants like this, yes, it may feel very exciting, and it is, but it also should be a signal to you that they need to go out into the ground as soon as possible because they are only going to thrive in here for so long in this pot size. Okay, so let's get into the educational portion of this. How can you benefit from my mistakes? Well, these are the things you need to know when you're considering starting your seeds for any season, and particularly in the spring. Number one, consider the space that you have. Whether it's inside, whether it's outdoors on a table, whether it's inside a greenhouse, how much space are you actually going to need when the crops start to get big like this, and what are they going to require? That leads nicely into number two. What size pot do you need? So if you're starting a lot of crops in smaller size pots like these 6-packs, are they able to live in there happily and healthily? I don't think that's a word. The whole time until the first possible date that they can be planted out. For most growers, anytime you're starting a Solanaceae, so that's peppers, tomatoes, and eggplants, it usually takes about 8 weeks. If you get really good at it, like we have, it might take 5. But know that if your first possible planting date outside is, say, May 1st, you walk 8 weeks back behind that, and that's when you know when you want to start those seeds. Planting earlier is not always the best bet, particularly if you're outside zone 9 and 10, and the dates in which you can plant are even more specific. Luckily, like I've said many times, growing in zone 9 and 10 is one of the easiest places to grow because we have 365 days of the year that we can grow, and it's a lot more forgiving in our weather patterns. So even though we don't have frost here in zone 9 and 10 in most areas, keep in mind that even if I put this tomato crop outside and the nights are consistently below 50 degrees, the tomato plant's not going to do anything. So I'm not doing myself any favor or the tomato plant a favor by planting it out early if those temperatures are still too low. So I know it's hard and it's really exciting, and you look on your Instagram and there's so many pictures of seed starting and all of these things are going on and you get really excited. First, sit down and look at your calendar and really think about when the best time to start those crops are, both for your space requirements and for the pot size that you easily have available to you.